Pair of young street thieves find themselves embroiled in a secret war for the succession of a throne. In Age of Ash, that's the book I'm reviewing on this episode of SFF 180. Hello everyone, Thomas here, your host as always. Thank you for joining me. Daniel Abraham, at long last, completed the groundbreaking Expanse series with writing partner Ty Frank at the end of 2021. And now expectations are understandably high for his return to epic fantasy, a genre in which he's already released two critically acclaimed series, The Long Price Quartet and The Dagger and the Coin. Age of Ash is the first volume of a new trilogy set in Kithamar, a massive walled city divided by a deep river and ruled by the Hanch, a race of people who live mostly in the wealthy districts on the river's west side. Over to the east, the poorer districts are home to the Inlisk, a race of people conquered in the distant past when the Hanch colonized their lands and absorbed them into what would eventually become Kithamar. By all rights, this should be the fantasy epic of the year. But there's something about this story that keeps its potential for greatness at arm's length. Despite its richly realized secondary world and a plot that promises high stakes, Age of Ash rarely generates big excitement. It's a story of thieves and assassins, of political treachery and secret societies, of colonialism and the impact of cyclical poverty, of trust and betrayal between family and friends. But the narrative is so rambling and inconsistent in both its focus and pacing that we're about halfway through before we start to see the big picture with any clarity. And while it does ultimately pay off in the last 100 pages, which are excellent and worth the effort, there's a lot of slog to endure before you get there. Though it's the beginning of a trilogy, I'm not sure where Abraham intends to go in the sequels, because Age of Ash does feel like a standalone story. Now that's a good thing, because I've always felt that series novels should function as novels, resolving their conflicts and tying up all of their own loose ends, without just stringing us along with cheap cliffhangers. But to whatever degree Age of Ash is an imperfect book, it sets a lovingly detailed stage for any future story Abraham should choose to tell. As the book opens, we learn that the city's ruler, Prince Birn Asal, has died after less than a year on the throne. We get big hints that he was not the legitimate heir, and that a battle for the throne is being fought behind the scenes and out of sight of the common folk of the city, who are just trying to get by, day to day. Once this groundwork is laid, the story takes us to the beginning of that tumultuous year. Our viewpoint characters are two young women, Alice, who ekes out a living doing petty street crimes as part of a little gang of cut-purses, and her friend, Samish, who harbors an unrequited crush on Alice, though not one so strong that she's surrendered her entire sense of independence. Alice is mourning her older brother, Darrow, killed shortly after protecting her from a city guardsman after one of her gang's little crimes went wrong. Overcome with guilt, she believes that he was murdered in retribution for helping her. But her investigation into his death reveals that he was involved in something pretty big, working for a noblewoman named Andomaka, highly placed in both the royal court and in a religious sect called the Darius Brotherhood. Andomaka is cousin to the new prince, and sees Birn Asal's rule as illegitimate because he never underwent the sacred rituals to ensure that the thread of Kithamar, a kind of magical embodiment of the soul of the city, was unbroken. She intends to restore that thread, and her plans involve things like abduction and murder. And it was this unsavory business that Darrow had gotten caught up in. Now Samish can only look on in despair as Alice falls into the same dark spiral that ensnared and ultimately killed her brother. Age of Ash is perhaps better enjoyed as the story of an embattled friendship rather than an imperiled kingdom. Alice is the kind of character Abraham has written before, someone whose bad choices and the consequences thereof don't become clear to them until it's too late to course correct. But even though we can see the pathos in the way she's pursuing a path so morally compromised that even her beloved brother wouldn't recognize her, as Samish warns her, Alice doesn't really win over our sympathy until late in the story, when her character arc ultimately forces her into some painful epiphanies. For the longest time, Samish is the only character we care for, especially the maturity and courage she shows in understanding that she can't save her friend from herself, and she's probably going to have to let Alice go. Or more accurately, let go of a dream of Alice that was never going to be their reality. Now, this is no YA romance. There's no cheap tear-jerking melodrama here, just honest compassion for the way the saddest life lessons are the ones that we can't avoid. And they're probably the ones that are best for us. But while we can root for Alice and Samish, we're never given a reason to root for Kithamar. All this dreary business about the prince and the brotherhood and a secret heir and this sinister disembodied power that somehow controls the destiny of Kithamar. Frankly, it's hard to give a damn about any of that. And Omaka frankly feels underwritten for a villainess, while her henchman Tregaro, deeply devoted to the Brotherhood and also secretly in love with Andomaka, is only slightly more interesting. And the ill-fated prince Birn Asal isn't even given the chance to be a character at all. So we have no way of knowing if he'd be a good ruler or a bad one. We honestly don't care who rules, because no one involved in this war for the crown seems like they do anything meaningful to better the lives of the people. I mean, might as well burn it all down, right? At least anyone reading this book who feels that way will find ultimate satisfaction. And that is all I have time for on this episode of SFF 180. I want to thank all of you for watching. Remember the most important thing, these are reviews. You will not always agree with me. But if you enjoyed watching, please hit that like button, share the video far and wide with all of your SFF reading friends, and above all, please subscribe. If you have not done so, that is how the channel grows. You can also support the channel at my TeePublic store and at my Patreon, where recruits into Wink's Army occasionally get little perks like early access to some of my videos. I want to thank all of those wonderful people for their added support, because I use the Patreon money to pay Matt Olson, my extremely gifted, wonderfully talented channel artist who does all of my beautiful thumbnails and artwork for me. So thank you all so much for that. I want to thank all the rest of you guys for being the very best viewers in all of BookTube, and until I see all of you next time, please stay safe and healthy, and happy reading.